Hello, and welcome back to episode 8 of WhotKnot podcast. My name is Kathy. I am a disabled maker. I had a car accident in 2007, and as a result of that, I am an incomplete quadriplegic. I live in Australia, in Queensland on the Sunshine Coast with my husband and my 3 dogs. So I like everything crafty. I like anything and everything. I have done many different types of crafts over the years. I was very crafty before I had my accident, and it took me a while to get back into it after I had my accident, but I'm definitely back into it, as my craft room at the back here can testify. It's bulging at the seams. But anyway, that's me. If you've got any other questions about that, put them in the down box and I can answer them on the next podcast. And I'm going to say in a fortnight, because I watched Needles at the Ready live. I didn't watch them live because it was 3 o'clock in the morning here in Australia. I would have liked to have joined them. But apparently using the word fortnight is not something that they're accustomed to hearing. So I like to film my podcasts every fortnight, as we all say here in Australia. Anyway, first off the bat, I had a surprise parcel this week, and this is my thank you. I have an Etsy shop, so I'm often posting things out. My husband came home the other day with a parcel and he said, "Oh no, I think something that you've sent out has been sent back." And with the post as it's going at the moment, not out of the realm of possibility. And I said to him, "Oh no, open it and have a look." Anyway, he opened it and it was a lovely package. It made my day, and it was from the lovely Julia, who is 9crafty11 on Instagram. And she sent me the most beautiful bundle of fabrics from her own stash. So there was a variety of them there, but one of them that really appealed to me was this one, which I actually saw on her Instagram. And as a child who was in primary school in the 70s, we had readers, and the readers were called Dick and Dora. And this totally reminds me of my Dick and Dora reader days. So I absolutely love that, and I will probably be making myself something with that one. But interestingly, she also sent a variety of other ones here. So I got this bundle as well from her. Thank you, Julia. Thank you so much. So unnecessary. So happy when I saw what it was. Such beautiful fabrics. The quality of them is amazing. But a couple of these are from Japan, and they are a double-sided fabric, which I haven't seen before. I mean, I am pretty new to the sewing game, so they might be out there, but I haven't seen them before. So this is one of them, and it's got like the turtles on it, and on the inside, on the other side, it has like these tropical leaves on a pale green background. And Julia was suggesting that these are great to make tea towels out of and things like that. So I'm going to have a think about what I want to make with them, because I'm not sure, and obviously what I make, I want it to be special. And this was the other one, which is super cute. It's got all the little Japanese sort of cats and squirrels and mushrooms, and there's chooks and little houses and all that sort of cute stuff that I love. And on the inside, this is what the fabric is. So it's, again, it's got the little lime background with all the little bits and pieces there. So super cute, super grateful. Thanks, Julia. Thanks so much. Very appreciative of that little parcel. Again, totally unnecessary, but alright, so it's cooled down here a bit in Australia, in Queensland. And when I say cool, I mean, we're getting down into the low 20s, so probably not that cool for people that are experiencing snow. And you know what? In my whole life, I've only seen snow twice. That's how often it snows here in Australia. Once, many years ago when I was a little kid, Mum and Dad took us up the hills somewhere. I don't even know where it was, and it snowed. And before I had the accident, we had a cattle farm. And one year we had a freak snow there. And we were all amazed. We couldn't believe it. We've never seen anything like it. But yeah, but it has cooled down. So I have got one of my home knits on. And this is the Annika's summer shirt. And I've knit this in a BC Garn cotton and held it together with a Willow and Lark plume in the colour Milk. So I notice I look lopsided a lot in the videos, and that is because of my situation. I don't always sit straight. So my husband's always saying to me, check how you're sitting, make sure you're sitting straight. So I do fidget around a little bit to try and make sure I'm sitting straight. But anyway, side issue. So yeah, Annika top, I love it. I think if I knit this again, I would knit it a tiny bit longer. The pattern gets mixed reviews, and I can understand why. It's not a cheap pattern, but it's a very basically written pattern. There are a lot of things that you need to know going into that pattern to sort of work out what you're doing, but obviously it's possible. So a lot of people have knit this, and it is a nice top. The other thing I would do is, because cotton has a memory, I would make these sleeves just slightly shorter, because they sort of hit my elbow, and when I crease it up it creases. It has a memory, and then that little bit stays all puffy out, so I think I would make them slightly shorter next time. So that's that. Now, what else am I got on my list of things? I'm going to try and keep this podcast a little bit shorter. I've noticed that the views on my shorter podcasts are higher. So from that, I'm reading that people prefer a shorter podcast. I have got a section that I am adding on to the end of this podcast, which you do not have to watch. I mean, you don't have to watch any of it, but I have done a real-time watercolour demonstration, and I will put the timestamp here as to when it starts. But if you've just come just to see that, you can just skip to it. And if you don't want to watch that, obviously just skip it as well. But anyway, that'll be coming on the end. But I am going to try and keep this section of it a little bit. Try and keep it a little bit shorter. Mill is not joining us this week. She didn't feel like she had done enough. She has a very busy job. Even though she's working from home, it's a fairly high stress job. She's dealing with a lot of people's emotional issues and things like that, so it's demanding for her. And she said she hasn't even had time to listen to some of her favourite podcasts, so maybe she'll join us next time. But never fear, I have plenty to go on with here. Alright, so let's get on to my finished objects. And obviously the finished object of the hour is my Ennui shawl, which I am super happy with. When I was knitting this up, it felt a little bit stiff, but as with most things, after blocking, it's turned out lovely. It's, as you can see, it's got a beautiful drape on it. The applied border there is just so pretty. I will tell you, however, it took forever. Well, it didn't take me forever. It took me like a day and a half, but it felt like forever. I love the colours in this. I'm tempted to keep it, but you may see this pop up in my Etsy shop for sale, because I have so many shawls and I just can't wear them all, and I have so many more that I want to knit, so we will see. But I have washed, blocked, and I did end up I said in an earlier podcast that I was using the Stephen West technique that he'd recently put up to weave in the ends as you go, and I did do that. I washed and blocked it, and I ended up running them back through again. I didn't feel confident that it was going to hold for the long term, and especially if I am going to sell this, I want it to be finished properly. So I did that. I love to put a little, this is faux leather, a faux leather handmade tab on it, which I'm showing to you upside down, of course. Get your self together here, Kath. Alright, so there we go. That's the little tabs that I like to put on. I just picked them up off Etsy. The only other thing that I did differently, I said to you guys last fortnight that I was going to add a little bit onto the edge here to use up some of the yarn, which I have done. I've added the bobble border that is not in the pattern. When in doubt, bobble it out. That's what I sort of think, and that's what I've done. I would have actually done a few more rows of this multicoloured one, but I started to panic that I wasn't, because this was an applied border and I was getting longer and longer, and it's quite a wide border, I started to panic that I wouldn't have enough. As it turns out, I had plenty. I could have done a couple more rows, but that's life. But that's finished. Love it. Love it a lot. Alright, so that's that one. Done. The second thing that I finished was my crochet blanket. You know what? I've accepted that crochet is not for me. I finished it. I said I would. I like to do what I say I'm going to do, and I have. It looks really pretty. I love the stitch on it. It's something a bit different. It's going to look great in the car because, as I said, my husband's car, the Cadillac that he is restoring, is kind of this colour blue inside, this electric-y blue here. And it's the perfect size because I don't want it to be too big because it is just going to sit over in my seat area in the car. And it fits over my lap just perfect, with a little extra for the dogs to sit on if they want to. I had this yarn in my stash. I can't remember if it took 7 or 8 balls of the, let me see, I put it in last week, didn't I? No, it's the Lions brand wool blend. And, you know, they're bulky. I was glad to get them out of my stash. I didn't know what else I was going to use it for. I don't know why I bought it in the first place, but I did. So that's done. And I'm glad. All right, crochet is for Mel. She loves crochet. And the last thing I had finished, which you guys have seen if you're following me on Instagram, is my watercolour, which you know I love me a little bit of watercolour action. And I finished my little birds. The reason I painted these little birds is I asked my husband what the plant was the other day. He planted it. It's an agave, and it's sprouted a tall, long flower out the centre. And we have 2 little lorikeets that are coming to eat the pods every day. They come every single day. So I was sitting outside there the other day, and they popped in, and I thought, I have taken a little bit, I think I mentioned it, artistic license with the paint colours, but yeah. Now on this note, I'm heading towards 300 subscribers. Yay! Thanks for all the new subscribers that joined us after the last podcast. That was great. It's nice to know that you're actually talking to someone instead of just crazily sitting in a room talking to a camera. But thanks to everyone who's joined us. So I will be doing another giveaway at the 300 subscriber mark, and I haven't decided which picture I'm going to give away for that, but it'll be the same thing. I'm going to do a picture I've got a bit of mohair on my face here. I'm going to do a mini skein of yarn and a stitch marker, sort of all coordinating, so we're touching on the watercolour and the yarny goodness side of this podcast, but we'll see. But on this note, with regard to the watercolour, so many of you have contacted me to say that you love the watercolouring, you wish you could do it, you have tried it, it hasn't really worked out for you, and all the rest of it, you love it. So I did a bit of research because I really enjoy doing the watercolour and I want you to as well. So I have come across this book, which I've mentioned on my Instagram earlier this week, and I've decided it's fantastic. Yep. By Dana Fox. It's got 80 projects in here, which are already pre-sketched out on the pages. I don't know if that's going to show up that well. You can see that leaf's pre-sketched. In the watercolour real-time video that I'm going to attach to the end here, I discuss it a little bit more. So I won't go into it too much now in an effort to keep this a bit shorter. But I can tell you that I picked this up off the book depository and I paid about $30. And I think it is a great resource for anybody that is new to watercolour, has never done watercolour. You don't want to pick up a whole heap of colours. You don't need a whole heap of colours to paint these. I've said a couple of times that the paper in here that you're using is definitely not high quality. But you know what? It's good enough to start with. And I think that if you are at all interested in something that is a very peaceful and relaxing thing to do, have a go. Have a go at this. I think it's great value for money because if you do watercolour or you've ever priced up watercolour paper, it's expensive. And there's a lot of paper in this book. So, yeah, I highly recommend that one to give it a go and let me know if you do. Apart from that, it's super cute and the pictures in it are also adorable. Right. Let's see, what else have we got? Whips. Right, I've got a couple of whips. I have kind of put a few things on hold because, as I said earlier, it's getting chilly here and Buddy and Rusty are okay because Buddy's got a nice fur coat, but Ralph gets cold. He gets super cold. So, not being a good knitting mother, I bought him a store-bought dog jumper and it was too small. So I went and got the next size up. I actually bought them last winter and it's too big. So he wears the bigger one, but by halfway through the day it's stretched out. He's got the off-the-shoulder look. Sometimes he's got one leg out of it. And I thought the knitting gods are telling you to pull your finger out. So I had a look in my stash and Ralphy is a lovely little ginger. So green looks fantastic on him. So I pulled out, I've got 2 skeins of this, which is a really nice yarn. This is the Yarn Collective Bloomsbury DK. This is the colour Oz. It's a soft and squishy yarn. It does say on it to hand wash, but I'm going to show you in a minute that I have actually knit a shawl out of this yarn. I really liked it. It gives lovely stitch definition. This has got a really nice variegated colour palette on it. And I've washed that in the machine. Also, don't do as I do. Do as the instructions say. But just for your information, I have. So I've cast on Jacqueline C. Slack. I hope I'm saying that right. You know, I'm totally bad with people's names. I try to read them and say them phonetically and it's not always the case. So the jumper is the harness friendly dog sweater and I've got to tell you, this is knitting up so cute. So this is what I've got so far. So his little head will go through this section and you can see more of the variegation in the colour in the yarn there, but it's got this lovely little cabled section on the top and on the belly area. And you basically knit this little cowl without giving too much away, because it is a paid for pattern and it's got various sizes in it. I've knit Ralphy the small one, which I think was a 15-inch chest. When I measured him the other day, he's got a 17-inch chest, but I looked at a lot of the Ravelry projects and a lot of people said that it had turned out slightly bigger than they were hoping. So that's why I downsized. But once you've knit this little cowl section, you pick up around the cowl section, and because it's a harness one, there's a couple of spots here where you don't pick up from the cowl, you cast stitches on. But because Ralph doesn't wear a harness, I've just picked them all up straight around. I don't want any little breezy holes. So I'm hoping to have that finished in a couple of days. Ralph is skinny but long, so I will knit the length that he needs, and hopefully all his freezing cold woe problems will be sorted out. But I love that yarn, and as I said, I've bought another project in to show you. Well, I hope I'm not talking too fast. I'm trying to keep this a bit quicker. Podcast issues. I knit this shawl. So this is the Golden Hour by Andrea Mowry. And this is also knit out of the Yarn Collective. This is my most worn shawl. I can actually smell my perfume on it. This is my most worn shawl, and without fail, every time I wear it, my husband says to me, I love that shawl on you. So this is one that I haven't gotten rid of. It looks great with jeans and a white t-shirt. It looks great over evening wear. If it's a bit cooler, it was great to knit. I think the colours look good. As I said, these are all the Yarn Collective Bloomsbury DK. It's a great knit. I might have done the old add a few extra rows on the end there in the stripe just to use up the yarn. My favourite thing to do. I don't know. You'd have to check the pattern. I can't remember on that one, but love it. And as you can see, that yarn, knits up to such a lovely drape. So that's a nice shawl. It's a good size, not too big, not too small. I highly recommend that pattern. All right. Now, let me see. What am I doing now? My northeasterly. Now, my northeasterly is going well. I have decided I'm not going to show this every podcast, but I have continued work on it. As I've told you before, I like to do one little section like that each morning, and if you do that each day, it just gets bigger and bigger quite quickly. That new colour, how amazing is that? I mean, just stunning. And that is Luli yarn. I've talked about them before. They've got another shop update this weekend. They had a shop update last weekend. Did I resist? No, I didn't. I'm not even going to look this week. I'm not even going to see if that happens. But yeah, that's coming along nicely. I will say I was knitting on it the other day in bed, and my husband said to me, are you going to put that white stripe on the next bit? And I said, oh yes. And he said, I like the colours. I'd like more colours. So I haven't decided. I'm going to make a decision when I get to the end of this stripe. But I'm thinking what I might do is maybe do 3 coloured stripes and then another white stripe, and to get a bit more colour into the blanket. So as I say, as I knit on I'm about halfway through this length. As I finish it up, I'll make a decision on the next row as to whether I'm going to do the cream or pick out another beautiful skein of Luli yarns that I have. I'll just show you this ball caked up. Look at that. So nice. Such pretty colour choices, right up my street. So I am going to keep working away on that, and I will show it to you intermittently as I make good progress on it. Now, the other thing that I've been working on is my animal friends, you know, the fox that I'm making out of this book. I am making the fox there, that little fox. And for the last week and a half, I've been knitting on the jacket intermittently. I mean, I was trying to finish those other bits, and I have picked up the jumper for Ralph, but I have managed to get that whole section done. There is a lot of knitting in this little jacket. It took a long time, but I'm glad it's finished. It definitely has a linen-y look to it. Of course, it's not washed and blocked yet because I still have to put on the sleeves and the little collar, which I'm hoping to do in the next 2 weeks. And it doesn't say it in the pattern, but I'm thinking about just putting a panel of nice fabric in the side there, and maybe doing a little bit of embroidery on it, which is also not in the pattern, just to make it a little bit special. But yeah, I'll finish that in the next couple of weeks, and I will start on the little dress, because what I'm planning on doing is just making all the clothes, the best part, and then I will knit the fox to put in it. So that's that. And my last thing that I've been working on, and I have done a bit of work on, is my cross stitch. So that's this kit that I bought a while ago, from the Owl Fox Embroidery, and I really like it. I was having trouble seeing it, so I said to my husband the other day if he was around Spotlight could he pop in, and he's bought me some magnification 3 glasses. So between using those and I've moved my desk lamp, I've been having a lot better time to see it and get it done. So I've managed to get a bit more across the top done. I've got another fox in, some more flowers, so I'm just moving across the top to that section, and then I'll move down and across. It's a little bit creased, but I had it in a hoop, and I've taken it out of the hoop so that I can show it to you. Yeah, so I'm really happy with how that's coming along. I'm really enjoying the thread that you use in this. I have done a lot of cross stitches in the past, but I've never used the variegated thread, and I think that the variegation in the thread gives a lot of dimension and depth to the piece. So yeah, I'm going to keep working on that, and I will be looking forward to finishing that and making something special out of it. So that's that. But they're all my whips at the moment. Oh, I tell a lie. One more whip. Try not to click these needles too much. I have cast on Mills Ursa, also Jacqueline Sea-Slack pattern. Really, really nice fabric is being created from this combination of Baroque Remix in Strawberry and Cascade yarns. This is the Cascade 220 fingering, and it's kind of a it's black, but it's got a sort of a heathered look to it with a bit of, I don't know, sort of a greyish fleck in it to soften it down a little bit. So yeah, I'm holding that together with the Baroque Remix, and this is an interesting yarn because it's actually recycled from denim, jeans and denim and things like that. It's soft, but it does have a slight cottony feel to it. But no, really, really nice. As I said in my last podcast, I've knit a garment for myself out of this and would knit another one out of it. But it's hard to get our hands on here in Australia. So they're my works in progress. And The next thing I will tell you about is my Etsy seller, and I stumbled across her the other day. She's got one sale in her shop. Yep, one, and that's me. So if you're in the market for something lovely and whimsical, these are all handmade, and look at that, just beautiful. My husband, as I've said in previous podcasts, I really need to put something light behind that. He has been building an outside area, and I am going to hang this out there. Just put that at the back and see if that shows up a little bit better. Here we go. So she makes these herself out of recycled, and that's Carol, and she's in Western Australia, and she is... Oh, I need to put my glasses on. Hopeless. Alright, glasses. She is Sawdust and Sandpaper, and she's Sawdust and Sandpaper on Instagram as well, and she's got lots of her pieces that she's made on Instagram to show you. So if you're interested in anything like this, see if we can get her at least another couple of sales, because this was $26. She express posted it to me, so I got it super fast, and the postage was included in the price. So I think that's really reasonable for a handmade item. That is really cute, and I will be putting this little ticket of hers which says, "Thanks Kathy, enjoy," and I will, "Thanks Carol," in my scrapbook. So she's my Etsy seller this week, and yeah, I'm really happy. You probably figured out I really like birds. I also like flowers very much, and that takes me on to this book that I've just purchased, which I put on my Instagram. Absolutely beautiful book, really, really beautiful. I've marked a couple of pages to show you what sort of imagery we are looking at in this. There is a little section of text, but I haven't read that. I have just flipped through and looked at the pictures, and I will tell you, I am thinking about dyeing some yarn up and using these colours as my inspiration. Look at the photography on that. It's just beautiful. And also too, this is a good sized little book. As somebody who doesn't have great hand function, it's not too big to kind of have on your lap and be perusing through. Look at that. Isn't that just beautiful? Colour of those flowers, just stunning. And very similar. Really, really pretty. But I picked that book up again. Book Depository, do love to troll, or Angus and Roberts is another one. I don't buy many novels, but I do like a beautiful book, and I have enjoyed trawling Angus and Roberts and the Book Depository at times, and yeah, so I picked that up. So that's one of my purchases this week, and I'm very happy with it. Another couple of purchases I've made are that Spotlight had a sale this week on their fabric. I mean, let's be honest, Spotlight are always having sales, but I've picked up this lovely fabric, which I think will be nice for some project bags in springtime. It's kind of like, again, with the watercolour theme, isn't it? But so pretty. I think it's really, really lovely. Like I said, do love a birdie, do love a flower. I'm about it. And this was the other one that I've picked up, which I'll open up a bit wider. And it's got like little children with butterflies and skipping. That little girl's watering the garden. A little girl on a swing. Some children in the cubby house. Mum and a friend chatting under a brolly. Yeah, I really liked that fabric too, and it feels nice and thick. It's a nice quality fabric, so I'll be making something wonderful, no doubt, out of that. Alright, now finally is a little bit of shop news. I haven't got I made quite a few bags this week and a lot of them sold. I did do a custom order for a knitting needle case, and I'll put a picture of that here. I have got to restock a few things in the shop, and thank you to everybody that's purchased something. It's really been great. I've got my husband roped in to help me with the packing of things lately, so I think he kind of enjoys that organisational side of it. He's very business mind oriented, so yeah. But I am planning on this week to... last week in my shop I dyed some yarn babies, and I've got a couple left. So these are a couple of the ones that I've got left in the shop, these yarn babies. And these are 200 gram DK. And I've got a 100 gram DK, so I just wanted to hold an 800 gram next to it so you could see how big they are by comparison. But they're quite big. And this week I am planning on dyeing up some 4-ply fingering in yarn babies too, and they smell nice. So that's what I've got on the go. So that's that. I think that's everything. As I said, I am trying to make this a little bit quicker because I do have the watercolour video on the end there. I've been enjoying a few new podcasts. So the Bearded Purl, he's only got a couple of podcasts up, but I have been watching him. I did watch I said earlier, I watched the Needles at the Ready live podcast that they did. I didn't watch it live, but I did watch that. That was great. And yeah, so there's a few that I've been enjoying. I am listening to an audio book at the moment, which I don't do too often. I much prefer music, but it is called The Boy Who Swallowed the Universe, and you know, it's a little tricky to listen to because it is about a young boy who lives in Queensland, Australia, so relative to me, that grew up in the early 80s and realised that his mother and his stepfather were drug dealers. And there are some pretty gruesome parts in the book. They did mention Bribey Island at one point, which is actually very close to home for me. So that was fun. But yeah, I recommend that book. But it's not a Maeve Binchy style book. Let's put it that way. All right, guys. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you're all doing well. I'm feeling great. I did take a fall earlier this week, unfortunately, which threw me off my game a little bit. Does happen for me from time to time, and that's part of the perils of if I'm trying to walk around. I can't walk around too much. Yeah, but I did take a tumble this week, which is never great. Unfortunately, my husband was not home, so I was left stranded on the floor with the dogs for company till he managed to get home, which took a little while, but he came to the rescue as he always does. But it would have been okay if I'd had my knitting with me. I could have propped myself somewhere and done a bit of knitting, but I didn't even have that. We just had to hang about and wait. But anyway, that's life, the ups and downs. So I hope you guys are all doing well, and I hope to be back in 2 weeks or a fortnight with the next episode. So that's episode 8, guys. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye. Okay, so here's what I've got. Try not to talk too loud because I've got the microphone right there. I have got a lot of watercolour paints, but I'm just going to use this palette And the reason I'm using this palette is because the book is sort of woodlandy sort of pictures, and these are woodlandy sort of colours. So this is the colour palette that I will be working with. I won't be using all of those colours for the picture, but they're the kind of colours that are in this palette. So that's that. The brushes that I have selected to use are both Princeton brushes. One is a number 6 round and the other one is a number 11. Also a number 3 Princeton Select round. So a number 6 and a number 3. I like to have some paper towel on hand to blot any extra water up with, and I have got a little cup of water. So that's what I've got. I've marked the page that we are going to be painting today. Oh, I just want to show you the beginning of the book here. So these are the techniques that it runs through. So you've got the wet on dry, wet on wet, painting fur, and ink and wash techniques are all demonstrated in this book. So apparently I have not marked the page, so let me just find it. There's lots of pictures to choose from in this book to paint. This is the section where they show you how to do the fur, and that's why there's lots of animal pictures. This is the ink and wash section. So you've got, they show you the techniques here. The layout of the book is that one side of the book tells you what you're painting, and here it gives you a rundown on the basics of it. And then here it gives you in step-by-step format what you need to do, what brushes they've used, what colour palette they recommend. My advice to you is don't worry too much about the colour palette, just paint. You know, it says here burnt sienna, Indian red. If you haven't got burnt sienna and Indian red, but you've got red, just use red. Mix a bit of brown with your red and you'll get like a burnt sienna kind of colour. So this is the picture I'm going to paint today, the chickadee. So this is the little guy. This is, here it says, with the wet on wet basics, you practice on the previous page, create this happy chickadee sitting on a branch. In this painting, you're going to control placement of colours and let areas dry to prevent bleeding. So that's what we're doing. So I'll just have to move the book across a bit. Get ready for the next section. All right, so here you can see they have got a grey line outline on this page. This is not actually grey line. You can't rub it out. It's actually printed on the page, but that's okay. The paper is okay quality. You will, if you're using good quality paper, you would get a different result, but this paper is definitely adequate to have a go with. So let's get started. The first thing it tells me to do is fill the entire belly area of the bird with clean water until the paper is damp but not soaking. So let's go ahead and do that. I have got a little bit of paint on my brush just so that you can see where I'm painting. And we're just going to wet that whole tummy area down. And if you're not sure with the water placement, if you look at your picture from a side angle, you can see if you've got water everywhere or whether you need to add some in some spots. So there we go. We've got all our water on, and the next section says, add a small amount of diluted burnt umber directly to the wet area on the paper. Now, I am not using burnt umber. I am just going to use colours that I've got. So in the picture, it looks like a light brown to me. So that's what I'm going to use. I'm going to just dab a little bit on there. And really, you are just painting in as if you were colouring in a colouring book to get that colour down. Because there's water on the page, you can move it around a little bit. And I like to add, if you think about when you're painting a picture, where the light falls, and because his tummy's sticking out, that would probably catch the most light. And this bit here, because it's tucked under his wing area, it would be darker. So I like to add a little bit of extra dark around that section there, and that creates a depth of colour and depth in the picture. And there we go, his tummy's done. And those colours will just gradually bleed down a little bit more and even it all out. And you can add a little bit more if you want to. It's really up to you. There is no rules. Nobody is going to police this. It's your artwork. All right, so the next section says, for the darker right side of the belly, add a touch more burnt umber pigment and allow the light and dark values to blend together. This is the magic of wet on wet, and that's true. And really, we've jumped the gun a bit because that's what I just did. I've just added that darker section to that side of the little tummy area. All right, step 4. Let that area sit for a few minutes until dry to the touch, then paint clean water to add black section to the bird, including the head, wings and tail. So this is this section here that they're talking about, and I'm going to live dangerously, and I am going to not wait for that to dry. I'm going to start putting my water on already. Oops, got a little bit of paint. So just being careful not to get the beak, making sure I clear that area around the eye because that bit stays white. And I'll do his back area. Make sure you put plenty of water on because that's the whole idea of this medium is the water. That colour's bleeding up a little bit. No, I don't really care. Do a little bit on his tail there. Now, they are suggesting add diluted ivory black to the wet area and allow it to blend out. You can coax the colour with your brush to get where you want it. So I haven't got black. Oh yes, I have got black in this palette, but I am going to mix a little bit of dark brown and a little bit of black together, just so the black's not quite as harsh. And I'm going to start at the top of his head here. And you're just coaxing it around in the puddle of water to get that pigment onto the page. A little bit more. And really, you are really just using basic colouring in techniques. This is maybe not as I would paint it, but the thing is, this is for somebody who doesn't know how to do watercolour and hasn't really got any idea on how watercolours work and how the paper works. So I am following the instructions on this, but again, there's no watercolour police that are going to come and check on this. So you do whatever you want. If you don't want this bird to be brown and tan and you want it to be green and orange, you paint it whatever colour you like. You can still follow their techniques and end up with a lovely result. So I'm just adding a little bit of extra here and there as a bit of a highlight. And again, as I said earlier, that kind of gives the picture a little bit of depth and interest. And again, it's all about where the light and dark values fall. So along under his neck here, that'd be tucked under and wouldn't catch the light so much. That would be darker. His wing being tucked into his body, that wouldn't be as dark. The light would hit the top of his head, so the top of his head would be a lighter colour. So keeping those sort of areas in the ballpark. Now I'm going to do that little tail section, and if you think about it, that's tucked under his body, so that would definitely not be catching the light, so that would be dark. So there you go. When I'm painting watercolour, I like to leave a few white sections, but she hasn't done that in this picture, and I am following what she recommends. So I'm going to paint all the sections in and make it look like what you would get if you painted it yourself. This, as I said before, this paper is not what I'm used to painting on, but it's definitely adequate to get the job done. All right, so we've got his little back in his wing painted, and the next section is leave the leaves with wet the leaves with water next and drop in sap green. When all the wet layers are dry to the touch, you can add the final details with the tip of your brush and more pigment shades of your mixed colours. So let's do the leaves. They've really left it up to us, but because we're doing the wet on wet, I will wet the whole leaf. And let's do that one as well. And there's another one there. And there's another leaf over there, but let's get these ones in. So I'm just going to drop a bit of green. I don't know what colour this is. It's just the colour in the palette. As I said, they've called for sap green, but let's face it, green, whatever green you've got will do the job. And again, I like to leave light and dark areas. If you want to mix a couple of colours together to get a couple of variations on that green, because when you look, you need to think about what things look like. I generally do not paint from pictures. The pictures that I paint are just things that pop into my head. If you watched my Instagram video that I recently did on the birds, I was inspired to paint those because we've got a lovely little plant outside that's really attracting two little birds that come and eat there every day. And I did take a bit of poetic license or artistic license with the colouring of the birds. They weren't the same colours as the ones that are coming to my garden, are not the same as the colours as the ones that I painted, but those colours appealed to me. And as I say, I generally paint from my imagination. I don't normally paint from a picture. Now, I don't know if you can see there, but I'm making the bottom half of the leaf dark because the sun would hit the top of the leaf, and again dark, lighter at the top. And I believe that that's sort of what creates a bit of interest. I probably wouldn't paint these whole leaves in I am sticking this brush in my mouth, which I shouldn't. It's a very bad habit that I've got, and I just shouldn't do it, but I do. I'm just tapping in a little tiny bit of yellow there because sometimes that's what you see on leaves down the middle there. So those guys are done, and I'm going to move across to this guy, get him painted in. And while I'm doing this, this actually allows this section to dry. And I'll often do that in a painting if I am painting wet on wet. Rather than stop, I will just work on another section for a while. And once that section's, while I'm working on a different section, the other section will dry and I can go back to it. But there is the good old hairdryer if needs be. All right, those leaves are done. And now I'm going to work on the branch. And I've got two browns there that I'm just going to mix together. So that sort of brown, true brown, and that rusty brown. And to paint the branch, I'm just going to angle this down a little bit, hopefully not disturb the camera. And to paint a branch, just think about what the branch looks like. And they generally look rough. So I just paint in some little quick lines and then wet my brush down, soften those lines a little bit, just tap into it. You don't want to create a solid line of brown because that's not what branches look like in real life. Just tap around a little bit and add a little bit of texture and interest. And once you've got it how you like it, I generally like to go in with a slightly darker colour and along with no harsh lines, just touch it in along the bottom half of the branch, because again that would be the darkest spot on the branch because it's underneath and the light would not hit it so much. And there's a couple of little branches going out there that connect the leaves. So I'm just going to, with the tip of my brush, I have been using the same brush the whole time. So this is the 6. I am going to swap over to the smaller brush in a minute to do some of the smaller details. If you want to, you can run the brown following the grey lead lines that are on it to do the stems on the leaves. And that's how we're looking so far. I am going to do his little beak next. Now, she just says mix in the colours that you've got. So again, I'm going to use a little bit of the brown. I'm going to lighten it down a little bit with a little bit of the lighter colour that was in there. And I'm going to get that colour on. So following her picture, the top of the beak is a lighter colour than the bottom half of the beak. So I'm going to get that on, that colour. Just put a little bit of water on there because I want a little bit more light at the top of the beak. So that's really all you need to do for that. And the bottom half of the beak looks black almost. So I'm going to go in with dark brown. I don't want to paint it black because I feel like that would be a bit harsh. So he's got a little bit of an underbite. And you're really just following the grey lead lines that are already in place for you. I'll put his little eyeball in as well while I'm here with the tip of the brush. It's just a little half moon. And let's see what colour are his feet. I'm going to do his feet the same colour. So he's just got his little toes kicking over the edge of the branch that he's sitting on, and you just want this colour to be dark enough that it's separate from the wood. And I think that that's pretty good. Now, she's got a few, in the picture over here on the right hand side, he's got a little bit of a tummy area hanging down below that branch, but she hasn't drawn that in the grey lead here. Not sure if I should put that in or not. Look, I think I might put a little bit in. Here comes the rubbishman, so I'm hoping the dogs don't bark too much. All right, let's get that little tummy bit in. Just a little bit of a tummy hanging down under there where he's perched on the wood. It's just these little details that you put in that give the picture, I don't want to say realism because it's not, but it teases the eye about how this image falls together in a semi-realistic way. So there's his tummy hanging down, and the last thing that she's got is a little bit of detail on the wing. I'm not mad keen on the detail that she's put on the wing, but I'm going to go with it and do it anyway because we are following the instructions here. She's kind of got it looping around to suggest feathers. If I was painting this myself from scratch, I would probably leave a little bit of light and dark here to indicate the feathers rather than actually paint them on as she's done here. But I think it's a good starting point for people to, you know, sort of realise the detail that helps to bring the picture to life. So that's what we've got there. She's also got a little bit of on the tummy area. So just to indicate some plumpness and feathers. And again, you do whatever you like. If you mess it up, don't worry. Like, just flip to the next page. And that's him. That's him done, I think. My thoughts are that if I was painting this myself, I would like to hit that with a bit of splatter. I won't do that because that's not what she's done. Or should I do it? What the hell? Let's do it. I'll show you what I normally do in my pictures. I dilute some paint, and I like to do this. I just feel like it adds a bit of movement to it. I cross my brushes like that and just hit it with a bit of splatter. I don't know. I just like that look. I'll show you a close-up in a minute. That's not really showing up on the camera, but I will get a couple of photos and show you how it looks up close. If you feel like you want to, once it's dry, you can go in with one of these pens. Make sure it is a waterproof, a water-based pigment ink marker. You don't want it to run, and you can go over and, as I said, I don't like a solid line, but you can go over and just, I won't do them all so that you can see the difference, but let's do this one here as well. I just like to add a little bit of that sometimes, not in all pictures. It depends on the picture. You can do a little bit of fur on his tummy and highlight the details of his feet to give that sort of almost 3D effect, I suppose you'd call it. Bring out those feathers. His tail. Like, as I say, no solid lines. I don't like to do a solid line, but I won't do it all so that you can see the difference between what's done and what's not. I'm trying to resist now. Can't stop myself. Going to stop myself. All right, that's it. I'll leave it at that so that you can have a look. I will get a closer photo of it, but my thoughts are this book's very good and I highly recommend it. Let me know if you give it a go.